Luke chapter 18. I actually used to work at a really large church in Detroit, Michigan, and it's a 10,000 member church. And what I did there was I went to homegoings, funerals, went and saw people in hospitals, went and saw people who couldn't make it to church. And so the church was so big, the church was a little bit older, so we would literally do either a funeral every day or go to a funeral every day. Like, I'm not exaggerating, like that's the truth. Every day there was either one we were doing or one we were going to. And one time I went to this funeral. It was at another church. And so when I go to a funeral at another church, what I'm doing, I'm representing the pastor of our church. And I'm going in, I'm finding the member of that church. I'm saying, God bless you. Our pastor loves you. We're praying for you. And I'm in and out. Usually they take like 5 minutes. And so I was going to one several years ago, and I walk into this church. I get there a little bit early. I'm sitting in the back waiting for our member to get there so I can just shake her hand and say God bless you and leave, right? The pastor of the church, he sees me, and I'd seen him whenever the deceased was in the hospital. And so he sends somebody for me. He doesn't come up to me. He sends somebody for me. You're going to get a feel of what kind of church this is real quick. And so I go back into the pastor's office, and the pastor is back there. He's got a black suit on, which is completely appropriate, a white shirt, and he's got a red tie. And I barely even noticed this. And so we start talking, and about 5 minutes before the funeral starts, 25 other men walk in with black suits, white shirts, and the same red ties. Now, this is when I started to get my attention, like, what is going on? Why do all these guys have the same tie? Like, did I not wear the right uniform today? I didn't know what was happening. And so these were all deacons of the church. I didn't know this. Maybe y'all didn't know this either. By the looks on your face, by the looks behind your mask, y'all didn't know this either. And so I'm like, okay. And then we all circle up and we're going to pray. And the whole time I'm like, hey, sir, I just need to talk to our member for like 2 minutes and then I'm gone. And he's like, no, just walk out with us. And so, so we walk out and there's this choir stand. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'll probably sit in the choir stand, do my part, and then I'll be out. Well, the guys, the 25 guys, they filled up the choir stand, and we were still walking in. And I'm like, uh-oh, where are we going to sit? And then I was like, oh, there's a front row. Cool. We'll probably just sit on the front row, and that'll even be better because I can sneak out and nobody will see me, like, leave the stage, right? And then the front row filled up. And then I looked up on the stage again, and there were three, I call them throne chairs. Now this is kind of like this, but this is a little smaller. I'm talking about massive chairs, like these. Like, have you ever been to like the beach and you sit on one of those massive chairs, and you take one of those pictures, and like it was like a massive chair. I call them throne chairs, and there was one huge one in the center, and then there were these two side ones next to it. And I realized really quickly that there was only 3 of us who didn't have a seat. And the pastor, he walks up on the stage and he motions to me to go this way. He motions to the deceased brother, who was also a pastor, to go this way. And he was telling me to sit in the throne chair. Now, here's what you got to know. I was in Detroit, Michigan. I was the only white person, not just in the church. I might be the only white person who's ever been in that church. And they all knew each other. There's probably 200 people packed into this church. And here I am, and I sit in this throne chair. And as soon as I sit down, I had a problem. It was the same problem I have right now. The chair was so big, my feet were dangling, and everybody's looking at I was younger then. You know, pastors age like the president, right? So imagine 10 years ago in president years, how young I looked. And they're like, who is this white kid sitting on the stage with his feet? And I was like, no, I gotta play it cool. So I sat up real quick like this so my feet could be on the ground and I'd be cool, right? I'm going somewhere with this, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I gotta relax. Everybody's looking at me. I gotta relax. So I was gonna put my arms on the armrest, right? But the problem was the armrests were like way up here. So I put my arms up and I'm like this. No, that's not cool. That's not cool. And so I'm sitting there in this throne chair, and I'm looking around, and I have to stay the whole time because now I'm on the stage. Now I'm in this throne chair, but I didn't come to sit in the throne chair. I came to just minister to our member. Keep that in mind because I'm going somewhere with this. In Luke chapter 18, we start in verse 35. It says, as he drew near to Jericho, and this being Jesus, as Jesus drew near to Jericho, a blind man was sitting by the roadside begging. Now, let me pause right here because we need to know who this blind man is. We don't know a lot about this blind man, but here's what we know. We know that the man was blind. he couldn't see. We know that this man had no vision. He had lost his vision. And if a man ever gets to a place in his life where he physically can't see, his life becomes much more difficult, right? But if a man ever gets to a place where he loses his vision, see, that's a different thing. His life begins to end when he loses his vision. That's why the Bible tells us in Proverbs that where there is no vision, the people perish. So when a man loses his vision, when a husband loses his vision, when a father loses his vision, people perish. People perish. Not just that man. It's not just when the man loses vision or doesn't have vision that he begins to perish, but people perish. That's plural. That's more than one. And fellas, here's what we got to understand. If we lose our vision, it's not just us that begin to die. It's all those people around us begin to perish as well. This man, he couldn't see. He physically couldn't see, but he also had lost vision. It tells us that he was begging. He was here, he was by the roadside, and he was begging. So it's no surprise that we meet this man in this state of lack because he had no vision. Once he lost his vision, he began to enter into stages of lack. We don't know why this man was blind, but we do see what happened as a result of him being blind. See, because a man without vision is a man that will have lack. A man without a vision will always be a man with lack. So many of our men today, we don't have any vision, and therefore we're begging. Not you guys. I'm talking about other men in other churches. Men that are out on the lake right now, men that are out at the restaurant, not y'all. But other men, they don't have any vision, and so they're begging. They're begging for money. They're going out making decisions based on finances alone. They're begging for love. Okay, all the kids are somewhere else, right? Lusting for women, status, or things instead of passionately following vision. They're begging for validation. They're looking for it anywhere that they can get it instead of standing firm in what God says that they are. But there's something else about this man that's very interesting. Not only was he blind and begging, but it tells us that he was sitting by the roadside. He may have been sitting because he was tired. I mean, if you're a man who's lost your sight and lost your vision, and you have to go out and beg every day for food and money, I mean, I get that. I'd be tired. I'd want to sit down. Actually, I like sitting down. I enjoy it. I sit down every chance I get. I get that. He might have been tired, so he sat down. But he may have been sitting down because he was discouraged. Because, you know, man, there's something about when a man has to beg that just tears away at the inside of us, that discourages us and defeats us and demoralizes us. Maybe he was sitting because he was discouraged. Or maybe he was sitting because he was told to sit. And he had just become a man who did what he was told, who just complied with what he was told. Pastor Eric, can you come up here real quick? I've been nervous about this part of my message for a long time because Pastor Eric, as you guys know, played football. And I did not, as you can tell. So what happens is, see, it would be one thing if society and culture invited us as men to take our seat. Like, just take your seat. Take your seat. Relax. Let us honor you. Let us bless you. You speak your wisdom from our seat. But you know, society and culture doesn't do that to us. They don't invite us men to take a seat when we want to take a seat. You know what they do? They come push us into. You
want me to push you?
Oh, yeah. That actually wasn't that bad. They push us into sitting down. See, this starts all the way when we're boys. See, when we're boys at home, you know what happens? We get pushed down into the seat, and we're told to be good. We're told, don't be dangerous. Don't mark on the walls. Don't leave the house. Don't go across the street. I got one for you. Y'all ain't resonated with any of those? In big meals, you sit at the small table, and you be seen and not heard. And what are we doing to our boys? We're pushing them down and making them sit down. I'm not saying you shouldn't do any of that. I'm not saying they should be wild and reckless all the time, but I'm saying there's something that God put in a boy that is not designed for him to sit. But it's not just at home. It's not just at home. At school, schools push us. You're starting to enjoy this a little bit more. Where's the security? If he goes with two hands, I'm gonna need some help. Rev, you got me? All right. But at school pushes us boys down. And you know what they say? They say, be a good student. And what does that mean? That means sit there for 8 hours while somebody talks to you, and you're supposed to listen, comprehend, understand, learn, and then regurgitate that on a test. Have you met any little boys? You know what the hardest thing for boys to do? Sit down and pay attention. Do you know that some of your sons are getting in trouble just because they're boys and not because they're bad? Just because the school is trying to make them sit down and shut up. And they're like, no, that's not how God created me. How many times in the scriptures do we read about Jesus sitting down, listening in the temple, in the sanctuary? I'm going to talk about church. Not this church. But see, church, you know what church does to men? You might be able to push me with two hands on this one. Church, I'm not going to say is the worst, but we sure aren't the best. Because you know what it means to be a good Christian in church, a good churchgoer? That you guys come in to this nice indoor facility, well air conditioned, and we start with singing. Now, fellas, for those of you who can't sing like Pastor Eric, when you started going to church and they were like, hey, let's start with worship. Let's sing a song to the Lord. I don't know about you, but I was like, what? And then we started singing the songs, you know, like how beautiful, I don't even know song names, but like you sing like about how beautiful Jesus is and how much you love Jesus. And I'm like, wait, isn't Jesus a guy? I'm like, I'm not good at this. And I don't do things I'm not good at, except golf. That's the only thing that I'll do that I know I'm not good at. But you come into church and church tells the man, sit down, sing the song, even though you're not good at it. And then after that, what do you want you to do? We want you to sit here and listen to us preach to you. And we need you to be good readers, good communicators. We need you to be socially acceptable. We need you to have good social skills and be good churchgoers, to be nice to everybody out there. And the men are like, when are we going out to go do something outside? Like I read about Jesus walking through towns, walking through danger, healing the sick, raising the dead. Like, what are we doing? And the church is pushing men and telling us to sit down. But then we go, I guess I got to do this again. Then we go get a job in corporate America. And corporate America does the same thing. They want you to be tamed. They want you to be clean shaven, and they want you to sit at your desk and do your job and go home and not cause any trouble. And then we get married. I'm with you. See, in 2 weeks, I'm in Georgia. You gotta come back to I got it. I'm with you. But see, what happens is, ladies, y'all like the man standing up. You like the man roaming. You like the man who speaks up and woos you and is adventurous and is strong. And then when you get married, you want him to sit down. You want him to be quiet. You want him to conform to the way that you do it. You're mad because he leaves his dirty laundry out and don't put the toilet seat down. You want to domesticate him. And then we become fathers. And then we become hey, I know, I'm gonna keep it moving. And then we become fathers. We become fathers, right? We become fathers, and all of a sudden, we're not even sure what pushed us into this seat. You know why? Because our fathers were pushed into their seat. And so all we know is a father that just sits there. And maybe he sits there in your home, or maybe he sits there somewhere else. But all we know is a father who sits down and shuts up and doesn't stand up and doesn't speak up. And we don't know what to do or how to be a manly man. We don't know how to be that man that God has called us to be. We don't know how to be that father. Why? Because we don't have any vision. Why? Because society has pushed us down into this chair to sit here and shut up and be a good boy and be a good dad and be a nice guy. We're going to learn some things from this blind man who's sitting by the roadside begging. Verse 36, it says, and hearing a crowd going by, he inquired what this meant. And they told him, Jesus of Nazareth is passing by. And listen to this, guys. He cried out, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. He gets near Jesus, and all of a sudden, I mean, he's not sitting in a nice throne chair like this, but he's sitting, and Jesus is near, so he gets up, and he says, Jesus, have mercy on me. Have mercy on me. And those who were in front rebuked him. Isn't that just like those who were in front? Again, not Summit Church, but other churches. Isn't that just like those who are in front in church? The church folks who are in front? Too soon? I'm okay with that. Again, I'm not back next week. It was those who were in front rebuked him, telling him to be silent. What are they trying to do? They're trying to push him down into this chair. They're trying to make him be quiet. They're trying to push him down and say, no, be quiet. Don't stand up. Don't speak up. And he's got a choice to make, a choice that many of us men have to make on a daily basis. Are we going to sit down and shut up, or are we going to stand up and speak up? And this man, this blind man with no vision who's begging, he does not sit down and shut up. He stands up again. He cried out all the more, Son of David, have mercy on me. And those people who had no problem with him as he was sitting and quiet, now all of a sudden are complaining about him. See, if a man sits too long, we complain. That's why we say, these boys these days, all they do is sit around and play video games. These men, so many men, they just sit down and shrink back from all their responsibilities. And fathers, they're so passive, they might as well be absent. All they do is sit around and watch sports. I have to admit, my daughter, a couple weeks ago, she was saying something about me or something, and she's like, oh yeah, dads, they like to sit on the couch and watch sports. I was like, oh, well, I mean, yes, but that's not all. But like that's, why do we do that? We do that because we've actually been praised for sitting down. See, when society's told us to sit down and be quiet and be good and be clean-shaven and be domesticated and be nice, they've praised us for that. They've said that that's a good Christian, that's a good man, that's a good father. Not the one who stands up and is wild and takes risks and sometimes misses it and sometimes is too rough and sometimes says the wrong thing. It's the one who's figured out how to sit down in the chair and play the game. If a man sits too long, though, we complain. But when this man stands up and speaks up, people also complain. Men, here's the truth. People are going to complain whether you stay seated or whether you get up. The man in this story, he surely heard the people in the front complaining about his cry to Jesus. He surely heard that, but how did he respond? He didn't respond by sitting back down. He responded by standing up and being louder and crying out even more to Jesus. He would not allow their criticisms to squander him, to squash him, to make him be quiet. because he realized that he couldn't continue living without vision. He also realized he didn't have to continue living without vision. Here's what I think the best point on this is. He realized that the people's complaints were not coming from Jesus. They were coming from the front, but they were not coming from Jesus. So here's the deal. People are going to complain. They're going to complain whether you sit, whether you stand, whether you speak up, whether you don't, whether you're clean shaven, whether you're not, whether you're wild and adventurous or whether you're tame and domesticated. They're going to complain. So we might as well decide right here and right now what it means to be a father of excellence, what it means to be a man of excellence, what it means to be somebody that can leave a legacy behind us of excellence. Because what society and culture has tried to tell us and pushing us into this seat is not it. You know how you know it's not it? Because they want you to sit there and shut up and be quiet until they don't. And then when they don't, they want you to hurry up and get up and stand up and be a man. You're like, but you've been praising me for sitting down for so long. I'm not even sure I know how to do that anymore. This man, he doesn't just stand up and start pounding his chest about anything and everything. He stands up and spoke up specifically to be heard by Jesus. See, some men, they get tired of sitting and they jump up and they pound their chest about all sorts of things. They pound their chest about how many women they've slept with. They pound their chest about what kind of car they drive. They pound their chest about how much money they make or the status they have. And why? It's because they're just tired of sitting. And they realize I'm a man. God has created me to be more than just to sit here and go to work and punch a clock and go back home and go to sleep and do it all over again. He's created us to do more than just have a wife and a family and be silent and sit back and watch our time pass us by. And so they don't know how to handle it, and they're sitting here and they gotta get up because there's something that God placed in them. Ladies, listen, don't fault your man when he wants to get up, when he wants to stand up, when he wants to speak up, because that's something God has placed on the inside of him. He just needs to figure out what to stand up and say, what to pound his chest about, because the women, the cars, the clothes, the things, the status, that ain't it. That's not it. This man, he stands up, he pounds his chest to be heard by Jesus. It's because men have this deep ingrained question that God has placed on the inside of us of, are we enough? Pastor Eric was talking about this earlier. Are we enough? Are we strong enough? Are we good enough? Are we able to do it? And see, this goes all the way back to Adam and Eve. When you guys know the story, when Eve actually ate of the fruit first and sinned against God, Adam was right there with her. Now, first of all, Adam was sitting. I mean, we're not told that specifically, but figuratively, he was sitting. And how do we know that? Because he was right there with her. And if he'd have been standing and speaking and leading and being a father of excellence and a man of excellence, he would have not allowed that to even happen. He continued sitting because then Eve gave it to him and he decided to comply instead of lead. And so then he sinned as well. And then you guys know the story. Then God comes to him and they hide. And God says, Adam, where are you? And Adam says, I was afraid, which is the first mention of fear in the scripture. And the first time you find something in the scripture, man, you should look at that. You should study that, because oftentimes it gives you the greatest definition and the greatest insight of that word or that phrase or that meaning. And here he says, I was afraid because I was naked. Let me say it another way. I was afraid because I was exposed. And ever since Adam, we may not admit it, especially on Father's Day, but ever since Adam, all of us guys, and many of you ladies, you've had that same fear. The fear of being exposed. The fear of being exposed, of not being enough, not being strong enough, not being smart enough, not being good enough. And so when we sit down and we shut up, it's easy. What's difficult is standing up and speaking up, because I may not have the right words. I may not have all the strength. She may say no. They may say no. Like you don't know. And what happens is it's just easier for us to sit down and stay seated, but there's something that God placed in us that makes us get up. We can learn from this blind man who was sitting and begging. He stood up and spoke up specifically to Jesus. Fathers, we must stand up and speak up to reach out to Jesus, to call out to Jesus, to pursue Jesus. See, a father's excellence comes from pursuing Jesus. It doesn't come from pursuing money. It doesn't come from pursuing women. It doesn't come from pursuing a status or a career or a paycheck. It comes from pursuing Jesus. And this blind man, he asked specifically for mercy, which, man, you start to think about that, like, wow. Because mercy means, God, I'm recognizing I can't do this on my own. I recognize that if I stand up and I speak up and I step out on faith, I may not be enough. Actually, God, I'm not strong enough. I can't get up and have the right words. I can't get up and make enough money. I can't get up and start that thing and do that thing. Like, I can't. I know I can't. That's why people have been telling us as we told them we're going to start a church, they're like, man, God is with you. And I'm like, he better be. Because, I mean, she is, but I'm not smart enough, charismatic enough, good enough. Like, who's going to lead praise and worship? Because I am not Pastor Eric. I mean, my wife is, so she, honey, you ready? Because I'm not good enough, and I know it. And that's a part of pursuing Jesus, saying, Jesus, I'm sitting here and people are telling me I'm good. I got something in me that just needs to get up and stand up and be the man that you've called me to be and be the father that you've called me to be. But I know I'm not enough. God, have mercy on me. Have mercy on me. See my faults and bring your strength into that. Where I am weak, you be strong. When I don't know what to say, give me the words. God, give me the boldness and the courage and the faith to stand up and walk out on the water when I have no idea where my feet are going to land. He's asking for mercy. He's pursuing Jesus. In verse 40, it says, and Jesus stopped and commanded him to be brought to him. And when he came near, he asked him. Let me pause right there before Jesus asked this question. This is so good. Because anytime we cry out to Jesus, he always makes sure that we come in contact. That's why it says you draw near to him, he'll draw near to you. Fellas, listen, you may not feel it the first time, you may not know it, you may not be able to articulate it, but anytime you cry out to Jesus, anytime you pursue Jesus, anytime you take those steps to come closer to him, he will make sure, even if he has to command you to be brought to him, he will make sure that y'all get in contact. And it's not just that y'all are in contact, but then they go into conversation. Excellence doesn't just come from Jesus, it comes from conversations with Jesus. And Jesus says, what do you want me to do? Now, I love this. If you slow down and read your Bible, it is amazing. It is hilarious. It will mess with your theology. It'll blow your mind. Because Jesus knew the answer to this. The answer to this is obvious. Jesus, let's see. I'm blind. I'm begging. Give me a wife. Right? Like, no. What? Like, Jesus, you know these things, not just because you can see it, but you're Jesus. But Jesus still asked the question, what is it that you want? And man, I think this is so good because there's so many of us fathers, we've been pushed down into this chair. And Jesus is saying, what do you want? And it may seem obvious, but he's still asking us the question, which means he still requires our response. What do you want? What do you want? And there's no plot twist here. He said, Lord, let me recover my sight. And Jesus said to him, recover your sight. Your faith has made you well. Your faith has made you well. See, a father of excellence, a man of excellence, you have to have vision. And that vision has to come from Jesus. You can't just come up with your own vision. You can't just stand up and pound your chest about whatever it is that you think you should do or whatever society or culture is telling you to do. It needs to come from Jesus, and it needs to come from faith. Because without faith, it's impossible to please God. So a father of excellence has to have that vision that comes from Jesus because Jesus honors faith, and excellence comes from faith, and not just faith, but a faith that is strong enough to make you well, to make you whole. And so while you're sitting here, while you've been pushed down, You may not have the strength, the wisdom, the words, but you can get the faith even while you're seated, because faith comes by hearing and hearing by the word. So when you're sitting here and you know there's something in you, you know there's more, you know there's greater, you know there's that God has bigger. It doesn't mean that you jump up and you figure it out on your own and you just start doing foolishness, which we've all seen in other churches with other people. But you sit here and you get the word and you build up your faith and you increase your faith and you listen to the word and you hear the word and you read the word and you meditate on the word and you pray the word and you speak the word. And what happens is your faith gets stronger and stronger and stronger until now you have to stand up. And when you stand up, you recognize that Jesus is passing by. You recognize Jesus' presence and you go with him and you follow him and you pursue him. And this is so good. Verse 43, it says, and immediately he recovered his sight. Because Jesus is never going to leave you out there alone. He's never going to let you down. His word and his promise is true. He cannot fail. Immediately he recovered his sight and followed him. And followed him. Men, when you stand up, fathers, when you stand up, when you say, I forget the excellence that this world is trying to tell me about, forget what it means to be a man, a father in culture and in society. I'm going to build my faith, so I stand up and pursue Jesus. Make sure that you continue to follow him after you stand up. Because what Satan will try to do is he'll try to push you back down. He'll try to silence you. He'll try to discourage you. He'll try to distract you. But you not only need to stand up in faith, but you need to continue to follow him and walk in faith and walk by faith and not by sight. This is a process. This is not an event. But he followed him, glorifying him. So this vision that God gives you as a man, as a father, to have excellence in the kingdom, have righteous excellence, is not just a vision for you to walk out on your own, but it is a vision for you to glorify God. So if God has given you a vision that doesn't glorify him, you may need to sit back down until you get the vision that God has given you. And then it says, and all the people, when they saw it, gave praise to God. All the people. Now, if you go back to the beginning, remember this man couldn't see and he didn't have vision. And where there is no vision, all the people around you, your wife, your kids, your coworkers, your community, all the people around you perish. But whenever you get a vision from God and you're willing to follow him by faith and pursue him and be a father of excellence, now not only are you glorifying God, but all the people, when they saw it, when they saw what? When they saw you, when they saw God through you, when they saw the miracle that God did in you, when they saw you get up out of the seat and stand up and speak up and be that man, they all gave praise to God. You want to talk about a father of excellence? A father of excellence is a man that other people can see Jesus in him and they give God praise. Dr. Miles Monroe said this. He said, the highest honor placed on a male is father because it is also a title of God. See, when I went to that church and I sat in that throne chair, I wasn't there to sit in the chair. I had to sit in the chair for a little bit, but that wasn't the purpose of me being there. The purpose of me being there was ministering to and comforting our member. And had I just came and sat in the chair for the whole time and never spoke to our member and never comforted our member, I might have walked out and people might have said, oh, you must be important because you're a little white guy in a church where there's no little white guys. And you got to sit on the stage in the throne chair. And I saw your feet dangling, but you fixed it real quick. You're good. Right? Like people might have praised me. But that's not why I was there. Fathers, don't spend your life sitting in a throne chair, on a throne chair, with people praising you for being good and being nice. I'm not telling you don't be good and don't be nice. I'm telling you to stand up in faith and follow after what God told you to do. Boys, men, fathers, your excellence is not in the life of sitting on the throne chair, playing it safe and being nice. It will be tempting to take a seat and be praised as a good boy, a good student, a good employer, a nice dad. But if you sit too long, your manhood will atrophy. And when the world needs you, your family needs you to stand up and be strong, you're gonna be paralyzed. Your excellence is in standing up, living by faith, and leading righteously. When you do this, you'll be more than a conqueror. No weapon formed against you will prosper, and everyone around you will be blessed, and the kingdom of God will be expanded. And when it's over, you know what will happen when it's over? You meet Jesus, and he'll say, well done, a good and faithful servant. Take a seat right here next to me. And that's the time that we sit down, when we've run our race, when we've finished our course. Let me pray for us.